I was having just a really tough time keeping it all together, sort of, so to speak. I mean, as I'm pretty high functioning, I managed to be able to do things regardless, but it was to the point where I hadn't gone to class for a couple of weeks, so my grades were falling. I couldn't get extracurricular stuff done, working on shows and whatnot. I couldn't do it, and for the first time, I felt myself slipping, and I couldn't keep it in any sort of check. It was just completely far gone. Um, like, I'd have to say I fantasized about suicide, to be honest, like every 4 or 5 minutes, and I just was really miserable. So I was like, I can't do this anymore on my own, so I've got to ask someone for help. I tend to get depressed for a very extended period, maybe like 7 or 8 to 9 months, and then I get hypomanic for a couple of weeks, which is normally enough so to the point where I can catch up on all the back work normally that I haven't done, and then I have my period of normalcy, I guess, before the cycle starts over again. When I'm hypomanic or manic, I'm fine. I can talk to people. I'm great, just like in that normalcy state. But when I'm depressed, I become really hermit-like. I'm horribly introverted. I get nervous around people. Um, I become really paranoid in a lot of senses. So for me, the depression's the worst part. Kind of what happens is you cramp in at the center, and I feel tight, and then my shoulders feel weighed down, and you feel like your blood's warmer than it is, and you can feel it pumping, and it's and like you want even when you speak, you feel like the vocal cords are stretching, like everything in you tenses up horribly, and you take these just huge deep breaths, but everything just feels tight and compacted. So you feel like you're sort of so you feel like when you take a breath in, the air expands in your lungs, and you can feel it expand, but you feel it like physically pushing heavy masses out to do so. I might get into the cycle where I'm like, okay, I'm depressed for no reason at all, and then I start thinking of the most depressing things my mind can possibly fathom, all those great philosophical questions that have plagued man from the beginning, and you start going, oh, well, if there's no meaning to life, or blah, 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 or why are we here? And you cycle those questions, and you're like, this is ridiculous. You don't have any actual reason to be upset or depressed, and then you get frustrated. Then I get frustrated that I've got that adding on me. And so a fair amount of self-hatred comes in, because it's like, well, why can't I just feel right? Other people get along, fairly decent. They don't have this going on. They can avoid these like mental traps that you're falling into, and you sink deeper and deeper until then I start deconstructing myself, and then all at once I just shut down, sort of, and I'm just in a horribly bad mood. I don't want to be around anyone else. I kind of just lock myself in my room. For the most part, when I'm really depressed, I can sleep a 20-hour day, no problem. I can get up, be awake for 2 hours and go back to sleep. When I'm depressed and I get really, really angry, and I punch the wall so that I tear the skin off my knuckles, and I cut myself a couple times. I mean, I never really classified myself as a cutter. I put myself more in the category of someone who was very self-hating, and I would think of it more as intended mutilation than some sort of cutting habit. If I was cutting around here, I would cut shallow, just sort of trace it so that little droplets of blood would spill, not a full gash. And if I was on my thighs, it would be very deep. I cut my thighs deeper than I'd cut my arms, because my arms would leave scars and other people would know what I was doing, whereas my thighs, at the time, not too many people were seeing those. So
Was it a way to distract yourself from your other pain?
It was a way to compound it. One didn't distract from the other. It was just, if you're going to be wretched, be as wretched as you can be. Knock yourself. It was sort of knocking myself to the point where I'd be in enough pain to want to kill myself. Because where I was painful, but I couldn't see a way back, so I was kind of pushing forward. the times I have actually been psychotic are when I was depressed and couldn't sleep.
What happens when you enter a psychotic phase?
This would probably be the first one, and at the time I didn't really know. We were actually home back in Trinidad, and I was in a room with my mom in the guest room at my cousin's house, and I had been depressed for a while, and I swore the devil started talking to me, and he told me how he was going to kill like my family and my loved ones, and like I think at the time I just like begged my mom what to do, and so she was like, pray. I was like, okay, I'll try that. And I just, for the whole night, all I could hear was like this demonic voice talking to me, and yeah.
What else did it say?
Pretty much along those lines. Kill you, kill them, how I'm gonna do it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hypomania. Personally, hypomania is great. I love it. If I could live in hypomania, I would. It's like being souped up on a bunch of Red Bulls. More than one, several. And you're just flying all over the place, and you've got a ton of energy, but there's no crash. The best part was I got hypomanic after I was depressed, so anything I hadn't finished, I could catch up on and get done. So I mean, like I could write 2 or 3 papers at the same time while I was researching them, and do a ton of other things all together. It was great. I mean, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, sleep. I only need 20 minutes and I'll be fresh. When I was manic, I've painted one time. I just painted my room, and I decided it needed like to be repainted. So I pulled all my furniture out of my room, and this had to be probably starting at midnight, and completely repainted my room, put it back in, and like the next morning and the next day I was like, no, I need to do it again, and I pulled it all back out and repainted it again. So I put 2 coats, I painted the room twice in a day and a half. When I'm hypomanic, I mean, it's a better lens to look at myself through. I mean, I don't think I'm like Jesus or God or anything, but I don't come down on myself as hard as I would when I'm depressed. When I'm depressed, I definitely don't want to meet anyone I don't know already. But when I'm hypomanic, let's work the room. Hi, who are you? What's your name? Ah. My hypomania usually does not last long enough, as far as I'm concerned. I'll generally only have it for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, before, I level out and I'm like a normal human being again who needs to sleep at night and can only do a certain amount of projects or things in a day. If I didn't take my meds, I wouldn't necessarily become hypomanic. I may become depressed, and I want to avoid that much more than I want my hypomania. I can take a Red Bull and have that feeling for an hour or 2.